coming right there.
All right, today we're going to talk about snares. This one is for catching birds. I'm going to go over a little bit how I built it, but it's a pain in the neck. I did everything by hand so that you could see that it could be done. It takes a long time. This one I did so I could take it off and use it wherever I wanted to go. But I could make this same thing on this post right here, but I want to be able to take this with me and demonstrate in different areas. So one of the first things you got to know is you got to have a peak on it. I use my knives and my hatchets to do that so the bird can't stand here. I want him to land on this. Now I carved this out. This piece of wood had basically the shape, had this knot, and I dug this out so I could put seeds into it, okay? Now you have to square the hole, so this is squared off a little bit. It takes a while to do that. It's a pain in the neck. That's why files on your multi-tool is extremely important, especially when you're doing this. This is dug out by an awl. It's a real pain in the neck, okay, but it can be done. That's why I did it. So now what I need is to show you the trigger system. All this is a weight, and because I demonstrate this, I have this on here already, but you could use a rock, whatever that you needed. Don't make it real heavy because you're catching birds. You can break its legs off when it gets caught in here. That you don't want to do that. All right. Now what I've got to go through and load this for you just a second, so it'll take me a minute. I'm going to go around the back side. The hole goes clear through it. I got a little stick here. I'm going to punch this all the way through. Grab it from the other side. Now, I've got to have this where it won't catch. I got to figure out how much of my loop I've got to make. So I got to figure out I'll need about that much length because I got to have a loop on it. Now, this is the tricky part. I've got to get this just barely stuck in where it holds the rope and this doesn't fall out. It's a trick and you got to play with it. But this has been sitting up here for 2 weeks for this video, and so the wood swelled a little bit, so I'm having a little bit of an issue getting it to stick. But you don't want it to go in. I don't want it to go in deep. I just want it to sit there. All right, I got it set. I make my loop. Sets over the bird thing because this is where the bird's going to land, right here. He's got the food in front of him. Now I get another stick. Bird comes in, he can't land on this. He lands here to feed on it and it catches him and he's caught by his feet. That's all that it is. Seems simple, the process is simple, making it is not. It's a lot of work. But birds that are around everywhere, this gives me food. This gives me another way of getting food for myself. If you're in this situation where you need to do this, you need to be thinking about birds, not just animals on the ground. All right, guys? Next, we're going to go to snares on the ground. But what I want to show you here is, this is how I'm going to set this up real fast for you. These stuck in the ground are to hold this, because this trigger mechanism is going to go over and hang off of. This is where I want the animal to come. These are about 1 foot in length. This trigger is probably 18 inches. And this over here is so I can hold my trigger in place while I'm getting it loaded. Okay, and at the end I'll take it out from this, but I had to put this in the ground because I didn't have anywhere for that to hook onto. I need the tree that I'm going to use to be in place so I can get my final stuff set. So this is what I want to do. These are all carved at the ends only on 2 sides instead of 4. They've just got 2 sides they're cut on. Now I want the animal to be able to come to either direction. It's important that the animal can go in either direction on this system. I don't want him to only have one direction to come to. I want him to come from every direction that he comes to. This is for small game. And what I did was I looked at it, this area, and I said, okay, I've got a lot of activity from squirrels because of the types of food that's on the ground that I can see that they ate. So I know that there's going to be squirrels. I'm setting these in like this. I'm not going to do a great detail of it. I'll explain it. I'm trying to keep him where he's going to be centered coming in. Now, after I get these stuck in, this is kind of like my little wall. Now what I'm going to build out of debris that's here, I'm going to channel this. I'm going to channel him right in coming from this direction, and I'm going to channel him coming back out this direction. I'll put the food to base this right in here, so either direction he comes through, he can get caught in this trap. But I got to funnel him in it. Animals are stupid. If they've got an easy way to go, they're going to take it. They're not going to pay attention that it's something that I put in there. They're just going to look at it. That's where the food is. That's the way they want to come into. So I'm going to channel them. Make sure that they come in this direction or they come in from this direction. Now, we're going to have to cut here for a minute because we got to go and I got to set up the trigger system, and you need to see how that is. Now, on the tree, I'm going to mention, I leave the upper branches of the tree in place so I don't kill the tree. The tree that you'll see me using will still grow and is still alive. Don't kill the tree. All right, now my snare is in place. The only downside on this type of snare is wind can actually activate it, so you've got to be careful in high winds. But it's very sensitive. On the tree that you're going to use, you've got to have it where you can bend it down. If it's too thick, you're not going to be able to do this. You're only picking up squirrels and rabbits with this type of tree, right? So it doesn't need to be really thick. Like you can see, this is the live part of the tree. I didn't kill it, but I cleared everything else off from it. I tied my string up to it that I wanted down to here, hooks up to this part of the trigger. Then the snare is hooked up to the same part on the trigger at the bottom part of it. It's in two different pieces if you can see it. And you have to cut in there so the twine stays in place. So there's cuts around the entire thing. So then I bring this part here is laced up over like this, so it holds it in place. Now the animal could come from either direction, so he's going to come, I'll bring it from my direction towards you. All right, so now the animal comes through, he's eating the food. He catches it, it gets on his feet, he's trying to get away, he gets it caught, he keeps traveling. Now he's up. Now he's hanging up off the top of the ground. If you see that one piece, that represents the animal. The other animals can't get to him. That's one of the most important parts, because this method takes the animal up off the ground. A very simple way to do this, the same mechanism, but I tie it to a stake, and the animal is tied to the stake. When he goes and gets caught on it, he's trying to pull away and it just tightens onto him and he can't come off of it, but he's on the ground and predatory animals can get him. The one thing I didn't cover, on my actual snare that I make, those are 18-inch leaders that you use for fishing. That's already pre-made. All right, it's a small wire or multi-pieces of wire. They're not gonna, the small animals won't be able to bite through it, and it's gonna stick on their body once it grabs a hold of them. All right, guys? All right, so now what I'm gonna do is take out my trigger system. We do close-ups. I'm gonna show you how those are actually made. Okay, guys? Now, one thing I gotta cover. When I loaded it, if you notice, I was back here when I loaded the trigger. Up here on my eye right here is a cut where I almost lost my eye because I was on that side. Don't ask me why I did it. Do not get on the same side as your trigger, because when this releases, it's going to come flying out, and it cut me right here. I had to have stitches, but it didn't take my eye out. This side of the trigger, load it. This side of the trigger, do not load it. Got it? All right, so we're going to do the close-up of the snare. This is the leader line, the metal leader line you can get at the store. It's got to be a minimum of 18 inches long. I cut off the little part that you hook onto your hooks. So they've got loops on both sides. I take it, loop it over it, bring it all the way down. Got to work it past this part. So now what I have is a loop here, if you guys can see that. That's what the animal gets caught on. You can see how easy that is to close on it. Then when I put this in through here, it's on this part. I put it through, and I'm not going to tie it, but it's the same thing you do in your fishing hooks. I'm going to come around it once, twice, 3 times, then I come back through the loop, hold on to it, and pull this tight. Now it's attached to it. It's just that simple, okay? Now this is on my trigger. This is the snare, and it's hooked to my trigger. So this is my trigger system. The snare comes, that I'm going to hook up, comes to the bottom part of it right here. Where it hooks up to my tree is on this upper part, and I had to cut in here so that the cord that I'm using will stay on there, okay? So it doesn't come off. Now, when you dig this part that's going to the ground, make sure you only cut it on 2 sides. It's easier to put in, and it won't lean so bad when you're doing it if you do it on 4 sides, just 2 sides. Now these, all the traps I'm going to show you were learned in Malaysia, and I love these traps. These are my favorites. Now, this is done at this angle. Do you see this? All right, so this comes together like this, and then when the tension's on it from the tree, it holds it. But what you didn't see is I moved it off to the side, if you can see, where it was barely on there. It's been sitting out here in the weather and stuff, so it's swollen a little bit. You don't normally have to trigger it so far off to the side, but I needed it to go. All right, so that's all that's holding it. Now sometimes at the angle that you have, it won't set. So sometimes you'll make these flat. You'll make this flat and you'll make this flat, okay? And it'll sit on there and it'll do the exact same thing. It just happens to be this angle works for what I'm doing it for, but it may not work in every cases. So you just make this flat, not an angle. It'll be straight flat across here, the same thing here. It'll still work the same way. And then you just got to figure out where you're going to put it, and it's got to be sensitive. You've got a small animal that's got to take it. That's why I talked about the wind. These are great, but wind can make it fire, and then you've lost it. Now my students would complain, I didn't have the animal up high enough. The other animals came and got the predatory animals, got their food, and they were torqued off at me. So I got little bells, and I would put them on my tree, so when it fired, they'd hear the bell and go down and get the animal. So that's a technique you can do. I can't hear the bell, so it didn't make any difference to me. But on this tree, I put it high enough, it'd have to be a bear. or a jumping mountain lion to get it, because it was high enough off. It was about my head height. All right, guys, that's all that is to it. It's not that difficult. It's pretty easy. We're going to do another one that works very similar to this, but it's done with a ring system. I use the same tree. We're going to the other side, and I'll show you how that works. All right, this is another type of snare that's going to use the tree to pull the animal up. Now, what's different about it is the actual firing trigger system. I have the same type of snare set up. I just didn't put all the stuff in for this video. You've already seen it. So this is really tricky on this one because it's got to catch it at the end, and it's right here. Now I got to play with this a minute and see what's going to hold. It's just barely on there, and that's exactly how I want it. You got to be careful because this system is really easy. Wind can take it. It doesn't take much to move it off there, so I don't get caught up in this. I'm going to simulate the animal coming this way. So he comes through, he gets caught, he's got caught in there, he's going to want to get away. He keeps moving, and there he is, he's up. And that's probably about 10 feet up in the air. It just comes right off this. Now, so you know I didn't cheat. I carry this stuff with me in my backpack. And these screws, see how dedicated I was. This Gerber with a screwdriver on it is how I screwed these screws in. I hate you guys for this. Do you know how much work that was? Okay? But you can't carry a drill with you, so you got to have something you can do. This comes with it. So that's how I put it in. It's a pain in the neck. All right, guys? None of this stuff is really easy. It takes work to do that. So pay attention. And the other thing is you got to know animals have their own time in which they're going to get caught in something. You can't predict when they're going to do that. That's why you see me with the slingshot, firearms, other things. I'm not going to rely just on my traps. I could probably starve to death. All right, guys. I got one more trap to show you, and we'll be done with this snares. All right, this is a treadle snare that I'm going to show you. What I want to show you in these logs, I need this counterweight. I'll show you how it all works together. But what I want to show you on it, this has got zip ties here. This has just got duct tape. So you can tie these together for your counterweight using a lot of different stuff. Now this is the actual treadle, and because we have river cane, that's what I cut. All right, and I lace these together. So I don't have individual sticks, but if you don't have the time for that, you can use individual sticks. It just makes it more difficult. And then notice there's a cutout here because that's where this trigger right here is going to fit. It's not complicated, but you've got to do it a couple times to understand how it works. Now, I'm not going to cover this with leaves and make it where they don't see it and everything. I'm just going to put this together and show you how it's activated. So now I'm going to get down on the ground and load this trap up, okay? So I set the trigger up because it's difficult, but you can see that I've go back over in the deadfall. That's the weight that's going to pick the animal back up with when the trigger is set. So I've got it already set. Now the river cane, I got to be gentle with this because this can fire it. That piece I cut out, I showed you, it lays down like this. I got to be careful, it's wanting to move right now. Now, I take the actual snare, run it through itself. The snare is set here. Now what I would do is set this up to channel the animal and then coming from this direction or coming from this direction. Then what the animal does is walking along. It's going to probably have food on either side of it or stuff on it. This will all be camouflaged up. Then when he comes in, he steps on it. That drops it it didn't stay on the stick, but there's the snare. It just, the stick I had wasn't long enough to do that. It wasn't an animal. You'd have the body and everything and it would grab it. I'm sorry it didn't grab that and take it up, but it actually will pick up, take like a raccoon, a coyote, or a small dog. It will actually pick him up, and there's where it's hanging, if you can see that loop up there. So he's hanging down, he can't get to the ground or get anything. This is called a treadle trap, okay? So this is how this system works. It works for larger animals. I hope you guys enjoyed these different videos that we've done today, showing all these different types of snares. You can contact us, make comments at the bottom of the comment section on videos. Go to Tactical Rifleman YouTube. Thank you guys. Catch you later.
If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so you don't miss out on anything.